Hello, everyone. I hope you're all having a fantastic week. And today we're going to learn how to resize images and also about the transformation tool. Learning about how to resize images in Photoshop will allow you greater control over your image sizes, both visually and in file size. This is an important skill to learn to ensure that your images look the best for the medium they will be displayed on. Additionally, transform is a powerful feature that allows you to modify images or objects to fit your creative needs. This essential tool enables resizing, reshaping, rotating, and moving elements within a document, making it a valuable skill for any Photoshop user. First, we will be downloading our example photos for this lesson, Leopard Inside a Cave by Laura Meinhardt, and this Polaroid frame. Open up Leopard only to begin. The Polaroid frame will be introduced in the second half of the lesson. Now, you may have noticed that a lot of the images we've downloaded from Pexels in the past tend on the larger size. Let's find out what size this one is by using the image size dialog. To open the image size dialog, navigate to the image in the top menu bar and then find image size about midway down the menu. Click on that to open the image size dialog. When you use the image size dialog to resize your images, four aspects of your image can change. The pixel dimensions, which is the width and height of the image size when it's open in Photoshop, and this value appears at the top of the dialog box. The document size, this is the physical size of the image when printed, including a width and a height, and the image resolution when printed, and this value appears in pixels per inch or pixels per centimeter. Photoshop calculates the physical size, resolution, and pixel dimensions of an image as follows. The physical size is equal to the resolution times the pixel dimensions. The resolution is equal to the physical size divided by pixel dimensions. And pixel dimensions are equal to physical size divided by resolution. The image size dialog allows you to resize your images in two ways. You can increase or decrease the amount of data in the image, which is called resampling. Or you can maintain the amount of data in the image, which is resizing without resampling. However, when you resample, the image quality can degrade to some extent. You may have to do some extra work, such as using the unsharp mask filter to sharpen your image to compensate for the resampling. However, most modern forms of resampling in Photoshop will work just fine out of the box. By selecting inches rather than pixels next to width or height, we can see that our image is a whopping 55.5 inches wide and just over 83 inches tall. Now, when you resize and resample an image, you change the amount of data in that file. To resample your image, ensure that resample is selected at the bottom of the image size dialog. Resample is on by default. Resampling changes the total number of pixels in the image, which are displayed as width and height in pixels in the image size dialog. When you increase the number of pixels in this part of the dialog box, this is called upsampling. The application adds data to the image. When you decrease the number of pixels or downsampling, the application removes data. Whenever data is removed from or added to the image quality degrades to some extent. Removal of data from an image is typically preferable to the addition of data. That's because upsampling requires that Photoshop guess which pixels to add. This procedure is more complex than guessing which pixels to remove when you downsample. You get the best results working with images you bring into Photoshop in the proper resolution for the output you want. You could get the results you need by resizing your image without resampling. However, if you resample images, try to do so only once. You might have seen online those like JPEG fried images, and that's the result of downsampling or upsampling many times. Now, when you turn on resample, you can change any of the values in the image size dialog, pixel dimensions, physical size, or resolution. If you change one value, you affect the others. The pixel dimensions are always affected. Changing the pixel dimensions affects the physical size, but not the resolution. Changing the resolution affects the pixel dimensions, but not the physical size, while changing the physical size affects the pixel dimensions, but not the resolution. You cannot set the file size. It changes when you change the total amount of data in the image. Note the file size value before you change the other values in the dialog box. Then you can use the file size information to understand how much data is removed or added to your image when you resample it. For example, if the file size changes from 250 kilobytes to 500 kilobytes, that you add twice as much data to the image, which can degrade it. Degraded images can look blurry, jagged, or blocking. When you resize an image and do not resample it, you change the image's size without changing the amount of data in that image. Resizing without resampling changes the image's physical size without changing the pixel dimensions in the image. No data is added to or removed from the image. When you deselect or turn off resample, the pixel dimension fields are not available. The only two values you can change are the physical size, the width and height in the document size, or the resolution, which is the pixels per inch. When you resize without resampling, you can set either the physical size or the resolution of the image. To keep the total amount of pixels of the image the same, Photoshop compensates for the value you set by increasing or decreasing the other value. For example, if you set the physical size, Photoshop changes the resolution. When the pixel dimensions are constant and you decrease the physical size of an image, the resolution increases correspondingly. If you decrease the physical size of an image by half, the resolution doubles. Twice as many pixels can fit into the same space. If you double the size of an image, the resolution decreases by half because the pixels are twice as far apart to fit the physical size. For example, a 400 by 400 pixel image has a physical size of 4 by 4 inches and has a resolution of 100 pixels per inch. Pixels per inch is also commonly abbreviated to PPI. To reduce the image's physical size by half without resampling, you set the physical size to 2 by 2 inches. Photoshop then increases the resolution to 200 pixels per inch. Resizing the image this way keeps the total number of pixels constant. If you double the physical size to 8 by 8 inches, the resolution then decreases to 50 pixels per inch. Adding more inches to the image size means there can only be half as many pixels per inch. If you change the image resolution, the physical size changes as well. Importantly, the pixels dimensions control the amount of data, and the resolution and physical size are only used for printing. Also, just as a note, pixels per inch, or PPI, is the number of pixels in each inch of the image. Dots per inch, or DPI, relates only to printers and varies from printer to printer. Generally, there are 2.5 to 3 dots of ink per pixel. For example, a 600 DPI printer only requires a 150 to 300 PPI image for best quality printing. However, you might hear designers refer to DPI and PPI pretty interchangeably fairly often. I might even make that mistake myself at times. Now that we've covered the hows and whys of resizing and resampling, let's get into the more practical segment of how to actually do it. Now, decide whether you're resampling your image or not. In this case, we will be. Since we'll be resampling our image, ensure that resample is checked on within the image size dialog. Now, we want to change our image size by manipulating the Fit To, Height, Width, or Resolution fields. Fit To allows us to select from several different presets that are common for web or printing. One that fits this image perfectly is 4 by 6 in 300 DPI. Width controls how wide the image is. Height controls how tall the image is. Resolution controls the resolution of the image. 300 pixels per inch is best for printing, while 72 pixels per inch is best for posting on the internet. By default, the width and height of an image are locked to scale proportionally together. This is the little chain icon you see connected to the width and height fields. If you click on the chain to unlink them, you can then resize the width and height separate from one another. However, doing this will warp your image. In most cases, you will want to keep the width and height linked together. Now we want to choose our resampling method in the dropdown next to the resample checkbox. By default, this should be set to automatic, which will work best in most cases. However, if you're resizing something similar to Pixart or something that has similarly sharp edges, you might want to use the nearest neighbor resampling option. Instead of trying to blur the edges a little bit to get the best looking gradient, it will instead just choose whatever pixel is next to it in the resizing. And this creates a sharper option but the nearest neighbor is not very good for photographs or other things that have softer gradients. Once we're happy with our new image size, press OK to confirm the resample. I tend to use this tool to resize my images for posting on the web. High resolution images, such as this one we are working on, are great for working on in Photoshop as you have a lot of detail to work in. However, if you upload it to social media or even just Google Drive, larger sizes mean larger files, which mean longer download times. For this reason, I tend to resize things I upload to the web to around 1000 to 1200 pixels tall for vertical images or 1000 to 1200 pixels wide for horizontal images. This tends to display pretty well on most platforms and has a decent balance of image detail and file size. You are welcome and even encouraged to resize your assignments to a more web-friendly size in the future, unless the size is specifically determined by the assignment or project, such as the book cover project. Now, let's open up our Polaroid frame we downloaded earlier within our leopard images. We've done this before, but as a refresher, you can do this by going to File in the top menu bar and then navigating down to Place Embedded, and then you select Polaroid.psd from your Downloads folder. Or you can drag and drop Polaroid.psd from File Explorer or Finder into the Leopard workspace. Once you have placed your Polaroid frame within the Leopard workspace, press Enter or Return on your keyboard or the checkmark in the contextual taskbar to confirm its placement. Now let's talk about the Transform tool. The Transform tool comprises two primary functions, Standard Transform and Free Transform. Standard Transform lets users make basic adjustments like scaling, rotating, and skewing, while Free Transform allows for more fluid manipulation of an object, such as warping, distorting, or applying perspective changes. You can find these commands under Edit in the top menu bar and then Transform to adjust layout, refine composition, or reshape content creatively. Let's go over some of the options of transformations. So first we have Scale, which works very similarly to the image size dialog we were just talking about. This resizes the selected content horizontally, vertically, or both, similar to the image resize dialog. Then we have Rotate, which rotates the selection around a reference point. Then we have Skew, which slants the content vertically or horizontally by moving its size. Then we have Distort, which stretches or compresses content freely by moving individual corners or edges. Then we have Perspective, which applies perspective by moving one corner, causing the opposite corner to move symmetrically. Then we have Warp, which bends and reshapes content using a customizable grid or preset warp styles. Then we have Rotate 180 degrees, which rotates the object by 180 degrees, essentially turning it upside down. Then we have Rotate 90 degrees clockwise and Rotate 90 degrees counterclockwise, which rotates the selection or object in the associated way. Then we have Flip Horizontal and Flip Vertical, which flips the selection along the vertical or horizontal axis, depending on which it is. Some of these options are usable without going into the menu by using the Move tool, which has the keyboard shortcut of V, and selecting Show Transform Controls in the options bar. This will allow you to quickly scale and rotate layers as needed. You may notice while you can transform the Polaroid layer freely, if you select the background layer, the option to transform is grayed out. This is because background layers are locked by default. If you wish to apply transformations to the leopard image, you either need to duplicate the background layer by clicking and dragging it to the new layer icon in the Layers panel, or remove the lock from the background layer by clicking and dragging the lock icon to the trash can in the Layers panel. Now, for your assignment, I want you to resample the base leopard image to something smaller than how it started. You can use a preset size, such as the 4x6 in 300 dpi in the image size dialog I mentioned earlier, or come up with your own. Please do ensure that it's larger than 300 pixels tall so I can see your transformation as well. Once you have resized your leopard image, I want you to apply at least 2 transformations to the Polaroid layer. This can be as simple as resizing it and rotating it, or you could experiment with Warp Transform or other transformation tools. Once you have finished both your resampling and your transformation, I want you to name your file with your first name, last name, and then transformations assignment.psd. For example, I would name mine Susie Crane transformations assignment.psd. Then I want you to place this in your assignments folder within your AVC 177 Google Drive folder and copy the link to the file or folder into the Canvas submission box. Once you have done that, click Submit Assignment and you are done. I hope that you feel that you've learned a lot about resizing and transforming images, and I will see you at the next assignment. Take care until then.